Good afternoon, beautiful beings of light. Welcome to the Wisdom Circle. My name's Priscilla, and I'm here with my friend Heather and Terry Suzuki, Wisdom Seeker Joan, and Sun Psychic Jean. Pure Visionary Terry couldn't make it today, but ladies, thank you all for being here today. So, hi, Miss Amanda Carroll. Oh, by the way, I'm going to read this. My name's Priscilla with my co host Heather, and we'd like to welcome our fellow circle members, Jean, Joan, Terry Suzuki, and Terry Suzuki. We gather together monthly as a discussion group of women regarding awakening, awareness, and ascensions. Our goal is to share, support, and validate each other, as well as others who are following the spiritual path. We're here to share and discuss spiritually related theories, experiences, information, and perspectives from diverse backgrounds and points of view. We hope to make you laugh, to feel included, and maybe gain some insight or perspective on whatever is happening to you on your spiritual journey. Our individual paths are unique. No two of us are the same, so please take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. And remember, this is for entertainment and spiritual purposes only. Today, we're going to talk about ghost busting, and Wisdom Seeker Joan is our presenter. So I am going to turn it over to her. Thank you so much, Joan.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction, and thank you everybody for coming today. I think that this topic I don't think it'll be scary. It'll be interesting, but it started out a little scary because when Priscilla sent the email around saying, "Okay, you're up next," I got scared because I thought I'd scheduled this for October before Halloween. So no problem, but it was. I think that set the theme for the presentation. But I don't think it'll be too scary. I wanted to do ghost busting. It's something I've been interested in and have done a little bit of for many years, and I think it's just a good thing for people to know, and to know that you don't have to be some sort of superhuman psychic to take care of yourself if you are experiencing something like this. So let's dive in. I'm going to see if I can bring up these slides. How do I put this?
I got you.
Oh, thank you. I was hitting the wrong thing. So ghost busting.
That's so cute. I like that ghost busting.
So what is it? Ghost busting is just clearing the energy of a disembodied person from a physical space. And that can be an interior or exterior space. And it's different. I consider ghost busting to be different from paranormal investigations. It's more psychic and intuitive versus technological. And the goal is to clear the space, not to study or document the phenomenon.
Right.
Although some of the paranormal investigators do have a psychic who uses intuitive stuff on their team, but then it's kind of like the goal is to, okay, let's see what all the technology stuff is showing, and to see if they line up. And that's interesting too, but that's not quite what my focus is today. So if you think you have a haunting, these are some of the signs: cold spots in an area, strange scents or odors, unexplained noises, and that could be anything from hearing a voice to hearing footsteps, or just, all kinds of things. Objects that move on their own, apparitions, actually seeing a ghost, or hearing disembodied voices. Sometimes if you just can't sleep or have disturbing dreams, a ghost might be involved there. And that can be like just in one room in a home. And I've got a story about that. And everybody else is fine, but whoever goes to that one bedroom always wakes up and says, either I've had the craziest dream or I couldn't sleep at all. Sometimes when things get a little more serious, you might start having health problems, or existing health problems or relationship problems get worse. If you're trying to sell a house and it just won't move, it might be time to call in a Ghostbuster, and I've done that. When things get very active, electricity or water, things turn on and off by themselves. Lights, the radio, a stove, a faucet, that type of thing. Sometimes you might just get a feeling. Excuse me. Did someone? Yeah, but anyhow, you might just get a creepy feeling, sense a presence, or you might just sense that you're being watched. Kind of that feeling like the hair on the back of your neck is standing up. And there's been more activity in areas where there's water or electricity, like in a bathroom or kitchen, or like down in my basement near the electrical panel, or where the water heater is for me. And if a place is very cluttered or messy or rarely used, those can attract ghosts. And I'll tell you, I live in this old house, and it was big enough that both I have this for my office, and my husband had another room that was just his office. And I went for a reading with a woman that I'll talk a little bit more about later. And she said, "What's going on in that room of your husband?" And I just said, "I don't know. The way we kept the marriage together was he could do, I wasn't going to chastise him about that room being messy, but it was a mess. He knew where everything was, but there were just piles and piles of paper." And she said, "Oh, there's so many ghosts in there. Just shut the door. Don't even go in there."
Wow.
So I'm getting that cleared out a little bit. So yeah, and just areas that aren't used very much. And a lot of ghosts stick around for, well, many reasons, but a lot of them it's because they fear judgment. And whether they were really religious and they feel like they didn't live up to all the commandments or whatever, what they thought was expected of them, they are afraid of eternal damnation. Or they might be fearful of meeting someone who tormented them on the other side. And conversely, they might be afraid to meet someone that they've tormented in their life, somebody who's just passed on. A lot of them, though, are just lost and confused and don't even know they're dead. Some of them might be looking for loved ones. Others just like the property and just want to hang around. And there's some ghosts that hang around because they're more low vibe and they like the physical experience, and they're drawn especially to through others experiencing drugs and alcohol and sex, and that can get pretty creepy. Very sensitive people have a hard time even going into a bar, because especially if it's like the place where all the day drinkers hang out and that type of stuff, because they can kind of feel the presence there, that these people are experiencing those types of experiences, or the ghosts are experiencing those things through the people who are there. And sometimes people want to keep their ghosts around, and so they have a relationship with them. There was, well, I don't know if I should get into stories yet, but I will tell this one. A local psychic who's had quite a ghost busting practice said that she went to see one client who wanted to get rid of the ghost, and it was a female ghost, and the client was a male. And it turned out that the long and the short of it was, this man was kind of having a love relationship with the ghost, and that gave him enough self-confidence to actually go out and start a relationship with a human woman. And when he brought the human woman back, the ghost
was not happy.
Did not like it and started throwing things around, and it got pretty ugly. But the truth all came out and things were cleared up. But things can get kind of complicated.
Wow. That's wild.
Whoops, excuse me. And so for clearing them, there's, the physical techniques like smudging with sage, or using sound like bells, or what else? Bells or drums or singing bowls, that type of thing. Or sprays like rose water or whatever your favorite spray is, just to kind of lift the vibration of the area. And then the intuitive techniques, these are real general, but you just kind of go to the place and you connect in, just like you were doing an intuitive reading, and ask, first you put a lot of protection around yourself, and then connect and ask why they're there. Sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes you'll get other types of information about why they're there, and just kind of start up a communication with them. Ask, well, what are your concerns about going to the other side, and what are the fears? And explain why it's to their benefit to leave, and that, they can always come back and forth once you cross over. If you want to come back, you always can, but you're not trapped here. And then a lot of times it's good to call in an angel or somebody on the other side that they love, especially if it's someone who's fearful, like they have someone who's been mean to them on the other side and they don't want to meet that person. Well, why don't you call in somebody you love? Did you have a friend or a parent or a sibling or somebody over there who you think will look out for you? And bring that person's soul in to be the escort. And then, of course, do a big clearing afterwards. But that's kind of the long and short of it. And let's see if I can remove this now.
Oh, I got it.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
But yeah, now I just want to tell stories. And I might start off with, let's see. I'll tell about the one time when I actually was called in to do a ghost busting of my own. And I was so proud of myself because I had just taken my first, one of my early psychic development classes that taught you how to do all kinds of different things. And ghost busting was one of them. So of course, beginners, attitude, I felt like I could go in and handle anything. And it turned out that my sister, she had a little shop that was just open in the summer times in kind of a touristy area in western Wisconsin on the river. And she kept getting these weird things that she would lock up the shop at night, and in the morning things had moved around. And then there was this nasty smell, and it was just awful. So she called in some HVAC guys, some ventilating people, because she thought, well, did something die in one of the vents or what? And so they came over, and as soon as they came over, the smell was gone. And she was embarrassed, and she said, well, it was here this morning, but they said, well, just call us when it comes back. So they left. An hour later, the smell was back. She called them. And again, this kept happening. They came, and the smell was gone. So they thought she was crazy. So she called me and said, I think it might be a ghost. So I went down there and just kind of tuned in. And I got the feeling that there was this woman there who had she was very brusque. She did not like that my sister had a shop here. She considered that space her own. And I got the impression that she had a shop there and then lived in the back, or either the side-by-side thing or whatever. But she didn't, and that it was a shoe shop. And this was a long time ago. And then the shop closed and she just lived there. But right now she was really upset that there were people coming into what she considered her house, and that they were parking in front of her house, even though this was on the main street. So I talked to her and, kind of went through those steps and said, well, you don't live here anymore. And Anne is here, and she promises to take really good care of it. And but you're interfering with her business, and you need to stop this, and it's time for you to go. And I tried to call in somebody to help her move along. And I told this to my sister and just said the main feeling was that she was just very brusque and a little bit mean, a little short and clipped sentences and that kind of thing. And it just so happened that somebody 15 minutes later came into the shop who'd lived in that town for a long time, and my sister hadn't. And she said, and my sister asked her, so who used to live here? Did somebody used to live here and have a shop? And she said, oh yeah, there was this lady. She was kind of mean, and she had a shoe shop. But then after the shop closed, she just lived there, and she was kind of mean to people sometimes. But anyhow, so that one worked, and she never came back. But I thought I was very, very pleased that one was so easy to do. Wow. Now, Heather, you said you have several stories of ghost clearings.
Yeah. I'm going to leave one alone and see whether you tell it. If you don't tell it, then I'll tell it later. But one of them was I would go down and visit my I'd fly up to Kansas to visit my son and his family. And my daughter-in-law had said something about um, don't you just love it when a name disappears? My granddaughter, she hated being in her room.
Lexi.
Lex, thank you. I kept saying, I couldn't, it's technically Alexis.
Yeah.
And if I have her in front of me, I don't ever forget. But otherwise, but her mom, Karina, said that she was uncomfortable in her room and they had to leave lights on and stuff like that. And I went up and yes, there were ghosts there. And I talked to them and, I said, I offered them to, because it wasn't I just talked to them and offered that they could go if they wanted to. But if they liked that house so well, then if they would please go up the attic where nobody else ever went, but they were scaring my granddaughter and they had to leave out of that room.
Yeah.
And after that, there was no problem. I don't know if they left completely or if they just went upstairs. It didn't matter to me as long as they left her alone.
Yeah.
So, and that seemed to work really well for them. Why don't you come around to me again after somebody else tells, and then because I've got bunches of stories.
Well, that reminds me of another one. Again, this has to do with my sister who lives out in the country. And it was her house that I was talking about, where there was one bedroom and nobody could sleep in that bedroom. It felt icky. So she called in a Ghostbuster and they cleared that space. And she found out the story. Whoever the ghost was in there was someone, I don't remember the exact situation. I think his family died and he'd gotten married and then his wife and young children had all died. And so he stayed there in that house and was mourning for them still. So anyhow, this woman cleared him out of there and it was better afterwards. But then she went around the whole farm, both inside and out. And downstairs, they had an old-fashioned wood stove, and there were two ghosts there, these women who said, "Oh, can we stay?" And they had lived there at some point. It had been built in the 1860s or something. And they just loved the wood stoves because that was their job when they were here. They loved to cook. And they just said, "Oh, can we stay? We'll just stay here and cook. We just like to be in the kitchen." So fine, they were able to stay. But then they went outside and there were so many spirits of animals, farm animals, horses and cattle and all of this. And pets. And so this woman was going clearing one place or another. And my sister's dog, which was a big golden retriever or Labrador, a golden lab, sensed what was happening. And so the lab would come up to the Ghostbuster and, kind of go, follow me, and then run over to another place. Like, oh, yes, there was a big draft horse here or whatever. And the dog was leading the Ghostbuster all over the property to get all these places cleared.
That's cute.
The animal spirits. So that was kind of cool. Who else Jean, would you like to go next?
Sure. I did a reading for a gentleman, and he lived in, it's hard to describe. He lived on a piece of property and built a house where his parents live and bought and built a house. He built it, like they all lived and built houses. And then there was an old farmhouse that was the original house on the property. That was his grandmother's house when she grew up. So they kept the property in the family, but his dad built a new house because the farmhouse was, antiquated and wasn't up to date. And it was just easier to build a new house. And there was plenty of property. And so he lives on that property too. He built his house for his own family. And he said that they always talk about that old farmhouse off in the distance, up on the hill. And they used to see a lady, and they called it the Lady in Black. And They said they would see her roaming around, and they would go over there and they would feel stuff. I'm getting the chills right now. And they would see her in the window, and they would see her walking around the property, and nobody would ever want to go over there. And then they started seeing other ghosts around there and other images. There was a military man and children. Like there was all kinds of different entities running around there. And so this gentleman is a friend, and he was one of the ones that helped me when I saw my ghost in my own house. And when I saw my ghost, I couldn't believe it. And I was like, really, I thought I was losing my mind. And he said, at one gathering, a family gathering or a party or something, he came, he's a family friend. And he's like, so I hear you had a ghost in your house. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, there was a ghost in my grandmother's house. And and he made me feel like like that I was normal, that somebody else knows what I'm talking about, or saw what I saw, and he really made me feel so much better about the experience of what I was going through. And so this was his family. And he said, hey, Gina, if you're a psychic medium, would you like to come over and try and see if you can figure out, what's going on with the farmhouse on the property? There's something called the Lady in Black. So we did. And I really didn't know what to expect, but she said her name was Violet, and that she showed me like the hat that she used to wear, and that she grew up in that house. And he said that was my grandmother, or was it his great grandmother? His great grandmother grew up in that house, and his grandmother grew up in that house, but Violet was his great grandmother's name. And he said he would actually smell violets. I'm like, she's telling you that's her name. That's who it is. That's why you would smell that. I'm getting chills, had to tell you guys. And so we went over and we asked her, what are you doing? And she was sitting on a wooden chair, on a wooden, inside, sort of like in the kitchen area, sitting on a wooden chair, and the chair was on a wooden floor. And she had her toes sort of dug into the wooden floor. And I was like, and she said, I'm not leaving here. This is my house. It's when she was born there. She grew up there. Her mother passed on. She had her family, and her family grew up there. She grew old there and died there. Like, this is her house. She really planted roots, and her toes, I'll never forget her toes being dug into the floor like that. Like, she was hanging on for dear life. And I told her, I said that your son and your family are on the other side, and they're waiting for you. They miss you. And she's like, I like it here. I'm comfortable here. And she just did not want to leave the property, the energy, the surroundings. Is a really beautiful property. And so, I mean, I wish I would have. He didn't know that it was his family. He thought it was some random ghost in the house, So I did ask her to cross over, and I did bring her son, his grandfather who passed, to come and help her, greet her, and bring her over to the other side. I said, you can come back whenever you want. I said, but it's important for you to go to the other side with your family, and then you can do so much more rather than just be in this one place. So she finally did go over, and I almost felt, I felt a little bad, a little bit, just a little bit, just because, she wanted it so much, but I knew it was for her highest good. And I was allowing my spirit guides to lead me in that as well. So I wanted to check if there was any other ghosts there. and there was the military man, and there were other ghosts. I can't remember who they were, what they look like right now. But she said that what she did, because she was the ghost of the house, the owner of the house, the spirit of the house, that when other entities came by and they needed a quiet place to stay, she would allow them to stay there. So they come from all over around the area, and they would be attracted to this place, and she allowed certain energies to be there. But honestly, you have to go back and watch the video. I can't remember. I think I did ask them all to leave or ask them all to move away. But she had such a little thing going on there. It was really very unique. And you go in there, and first of all, I didn't expect it to be his family. Second of all, and he didn't either. Second of all, I didn't expect to get the name. I didn't understand that she allowed other entities from around the air. It was just such a learning experience, so mind blowing. But it was really very interesting. Hmm.
Cool.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I can just see her feet. You're not taking me out of here. This is mine.
Right.
Wow.
I understood it.
Sure. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah. Amazing. How about you, Terry? Do you have a Ghostbusters?
I have a few ghost stories.
Okay.
Now, but I'll start with my mother.
Okay.
My mother has been a ghost. She's not now, but she was. So my mother was a hoarder, and she hoarded right up until she died. And then after she died, and I was cleaning out her house with my brothers and sisters, she could manipulate energy, especially electricity, and she blew out every electrical thing we brought. And then she even blew out things that were by battery, so they weren't plugged into the electricity. I mean, we lost vacuums, carpet shampooers, my absolute favorite weed eater. I mean, lots of
She
stuff.
was angry.
Well, it's her house. She didn't let her stuff touched. I mean, in life, she would have been about that angry too. Um, so anyway, we did get it all cleaned up. We got everything. We even had the electricity checked just in case there's a short or something like that, but there wasn't. And then I put in some renters that were not. They weren't renters. What they were the kind of renters that have nice furniture and will agree to vacate the house if somebody wants to tour it, to help you sell the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so they proceeded to do that, and the house didn't sell, not even a little bit. And I gave them a long time actually, and finally, I should say one more thing. When I was there cleaning the house and doing things, I brought my little dog Emma with me. Emma was the best trained dog. Emma would never pee or poop in a house ever, ever. She was so good. But my mother didn't like animals, and she would scare the bejesus out of my dog, and she would lose control in the house. She wouldn't know how to wake me up, and then she would try to go outside, and then my mom would scare her. My mom was not always very nice, especially when she was not in the body. And so then these people rented it, and finally it just wouldn't sell. And so I said, okay, well, you can't be there now. We're going to stop the contract. And they said, well, we would like to rent this house. We do like this house. It was a very nice house. And I told them how much they'd have to actually pay in rent, because through this contract, they were not paying full rent. It was very little to live there. And they're like, oh, no, we can't afford that. We're not going to do that. And they were very angry, like I was being bad to them. And so the last thing they said before they hung up on me was, and by the way, this house is haunted. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Yes, I knew that. So then I talked to my mom. I got some good renters, some renters that I knew she would like. And I just went to the house all alone and just walked around the house talking to my mom, telling her about these people and that they're really nice. And I I do eventually need to sell her house, and they have a little kid, very nice people. Don't please do not make please do not interfere with them. And she did not. She didn't, but
Wow.
she still stayed around though. I could tell she was still there watching her property. And then right after them, I did sell the house to my nephews. And she was very happy about that and finally went to the other side.
Kept it in the family.
Yeah, so long as
Definitely.
it was in the family, she was happy. But oh my, she was she wasn't gonna budge either
It gets,
until it made her until she was happy with what happened.
That's
yeah.
wild.
I have more, so I'll take when you come around again, I'll tell you some more.
Well, I'm going to jump in with another property related one. Um, the same sister whose house lived in the farmhouse, she and I worked together to get my mom's house ready to sell. And it looked gorgeous. She had it all staged, and but the property it just wouldn't sell. And so finally,
I know
we
that feeling.
so we had the woman who cleared the farm, at my sister's farmhouse, and they, found all the animals and everything. Had her come up and go through the house and the exterior, and still it wouldn't sell. So then we called in the big guns, which was the woman whose class I took, and she has quite a lot of experience in ghost busting. And she came in and she said, "Oh, well, it's your grandfather." Now, and it's my late mother's father, who died in 1962. So
Wow.
this was 2015. So it had been a long time. And she said, "Yeah, he represents one of those people who was afraid to cross over because he was Catholic, and he was afraid of damnation or whatever. So he decided just to stay at his in-laws' house. It was his wife's parents who built this house in the 1890s. Um, and anyhow, so she called in my grandmother, and it took a little bit of doing, but he finally left. And then she was going to go, clear it out one more time. She came down the stairs and she thought she saw him again, thought, "What's going on here?" And went over in front of this bay window, and she said, "Oh, come here. You have to feel this. This is what we call a shell of a ghost that's been there a lot." And she said, "I think he stood in front of this window for all those years, watching people coming and going and kind of looking after the house. But she said, put your hand through this. And as you did, you could feel going from warm to cold to warm again." So it
Wow.
was very, very subtle. She could feel it very well. I could just barely do it. But yeah, we got him out of there, and then the house sold like that. So,
Wow.
yeah. So let's see. Priscilla, have you told your
Yes, I do have a story. I went to a very haunted hotel to stay with my family, and I'm not going to name the hotel because we didn't see any activity whatsoever. And on the second night we were there, my family asked me to try to contact the ghosts that were supposed to be in this room or whatever. And so we were all kind of disappointed. Nothing had gone on in the rooms or anything that we'd expect, had been told might happen. Although we did get a ghost in a picture after a tour, a ghost in a window. We actually got, it looks like a man's face in a window during in part of the hotel, not where we were. So I went, I closed my eyes, and I asked if there was anybody there that wanted to talk, or if there was anybody there that wanted to cross over. Oh my God, it was like instantaneous. I had never done it before. I was totally clueless. So I called in their higher selves. I called in my higher self and their higher selves to ask them to help them move over. And it was almost instantaneous. It was a group of beings that had been in this hotel for many, many, many years. And when I talked to them, I told them if they would cross over, they could come back anytime they wanted. And there were 30 souls that crossed.
Wow.
It was almost instantaneous. This white light just, to me, it filled the room, but of course my eyes were closed. And there were 30 souls that crossed over. And then I thought, oh Lord, what have I done? This hotel is known for hauntings. Have I taken away their hauntings? And the entities were so cute. They assured me that the energy there was so powerful. It had been there for so long that that residue of energy was going to be there for 100 years. It was not a problem. And not only that, not all of the entities that were there or that crossed. Some of them wanted to stay, but there were 30 that crossed, and I was absolutely amazed at the amount of love and gratitude that they all thanked me as they left. And you could feel that love and gratitude that each one of them had. And it really felt like it was instantaneous. I don't think my eyes were closed more than a couple of minutes, if that. And I said some stayed, but 30 of them left. And I felt at peace, and I felt they're at peace as they left. And that was kind of interesting, and I haven't done it since that I'm aware. I don't. Heather, has there been any other instances? I don't remember. You're muted, I think.
Olivia's room.
Oh, recently. I'll let you talk about that one.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that one, but I was going to talk, if it's okay.
Yes, please.
I was going to talk about one of the first ones that I ever had, because to me it was such an interesting story, and I'm going, really? But in Texas, I used to camp a lot. And I would go down to this place that was called Gorman Falls, and it's along the Colorado River in Texas. And the falls themselves are like 30 feet tall, huge. You really would never want to fall off of them because it would kill you. Yeah. Anyway, I was there with a friend, and I kept seeing this little girl in a pinafore and long skirted, standing out from the falls, like in the middle of the air. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And so I mentioned it to this friend, and basically we asked, who are you? What are you doing there? And she said, well, she used to live up on top of the falls. There was a big field back there, and she had fallen off of them. And it was so beautiful there. She didn't want to leave, but she was missing her mom and dad and her sisters and the rest of her family. So we told her, if she wanted to leave, she could go ahead and go. She can always come back and visit, but she could go ahead and go. And the next thing I knew is she wasn't there anymore. She was gone. So she went back with her family. It wasn't that she was afraid to. She didn't know how. She didn't know she could. And when she had originally died, she just thought it was so beautiful, she didn't want to leave. So she didn't follow the nature of things. And it was really, really cool. I mean, it was such an interesting story for me. Of course, I love the falls. Then, I would just listen to them all the time. So, but, and I was going to say, if somebody else has another one, it's like I said, I have a bunch of them.
Now, that's not all you have. Jean is observing that there's a ghost-like something or other on the right bottom of your screen.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised. I always
It's showing up every so often. Every so often it moves in and then it moves out.
Yeah, I see them a lot. It's not necessarily that they're bad or anything. It's like when her husband would come and visit us down in Key West, I would say, David's here. And she'd say, where? And I'd say, over there. And he would say, where over there? And I'd start describing it. He says, okay, you're seeing me, Okay, I'll believe you since you proved it, But, so I see a lot of them. And not all of them need to be released. A lot of them that I see are simply visiting. They have a message for whoever they're standing next to or behind, and they just want to convey that. and
Yeah.
then they're gone again. So,
Do
you know,
do you have a fan running where you are? Is there a fan?
yeah, you want me to shut it off?
No, but is there curtains or something that might be blowing?
Actually, no, because that fan is not turning towards the curtain.
Uh,
Where's your curtain? Behind you?
Uh-huh. Oh, now it's moved. Okay, that's the curtain.
oh,
Oh,
that's it.
there.
Okay, we just saw it.
Okay. So anyway, so I do have other people that are there. There was one that I've got to tell you, as a kid, we lived in a 3-story old colonial house. And of course, you had the first floor, second floor, and third floor when half of it was built up and the other half was just like the attic, and that's it. But you could go back underneath the eaves. I never would, because I knew there was something back there
Mm-hmm.
forever and ever and ever. And I would not go back there. My brothers did, and they'd all come out scared. They would go out and go back there because they wanted to come out scared, because they were. But I wouldn't go back there because I knew they were back there hiding. And when I come around, they tend to back off. Anyway, so it turns out that after all of us left the house, and it was just my folks, it started wandering around the house, and my mom was aware of it in the bedroom. So you don't have to have anything special. Yes, she put a cross up above the bed so they'd leave her alone, but she could tell when they were there. And she and my dad finally sent prayers up saying, you know, whoever this is, let them go. And it left. So, you know, it was around for a long, long time. And I know in my heart, because I asked, that was not the lady that I would see at the foot of my bed checking on me.
Right.
Yeah.
As a kid, I would wake up and there was this lady at the foot of my bed. And I finally asked my mom who it was. I don't know whether she was telling me the truth, but what she told me was that it was a lady who had lived in that house, who had a daughter my age who had died. And so she was just checking to make sure I was okay. But she would be there so often. I would wake up just because I was aware of her presence. I'd wake up, look down. Oh, it's you. Go back to sleep. You know, it got to be very commonplace. And I was going to say what Priscilla was talking about was that when I went to visit, she had mentioned that Olivia was not happy in her room. You sure you don't want to talk about this one?
Go ahead.
Okay. So she asked me to go check the room out. And when I went in, all I could feel and see was all this darkness around the edges. When I go into a room and when she goes into a room, we are bright enough that they all leave us. So when she went into the room, she wasn't aware of anything there. I wasn't actually aware of it until I stopped and just stood there for a minute to feel, and you could feel them beginning to come back in. That room was full. Not anymore. We
Not
cleared it out.
Wow.
So,
Well, I have one more story I wanted to tell, and then maybe we can take some questions or tell more stories.
Yeah, we've got more questions for sure.
Okay, I'll be quick about this one.
No
This,
worries.
I was taking another class from the same woman who was a really good Ghostbuster as well as a really good psychic. And one day she said to everybody in the class, "Oh, you know, would you guys be interested in going out on a ghost busting with me sometime?" And everybody else in the class said yes. And I was like, I had ghosts around when I was a kid, and I would do in my first apartment and all this. And I was like, I can do without the ghosts. But anyhow, a week or two later, I got a call from the teacher saying, "Hey, I've got a ghost busting job, and I'm supposed to take you." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I thought, well, this is an opportunity, but I wasn't real thrilled. And she said, "Well, the spirit said you're supposed to be there." So told me where it was, and we met, and it was very interesting. I'll try not to give away too much about it so the client wouldn't know who we're talking about. But this was the woman who was very spiritual and had actually cleared ghosts out of other people's houses. But she had a ghost in her house that was getting a little dangerous. The gas stove would start
Oh, geez.
Come on. And both she and her husband, their health was deteriorating. He had some health problems that were getting worse, and hers were starting. And it was like, and she was pretty sure that there was a ghost here. So anyhow, the teacher, she said, first I just kind of sat and talked to the client. And then my teacher, the Ghostbuster, went throughout the room to kind of locate the ghost and kind of start up the conversation and everything. And then she came back and told me, sit there and channel healing to the client. And I have to negotiate a little bit more with this ghost, because what was happening was that he was coming around and stealing their energy, both she and the husband, who wasn't there at the time. So I did that, just channeling healing to kind of keep things sealed up, because she said, otherwise he's going to come around and just, steal more of her energy or whatever. I'm not quite sure how all that worked. But it turned out that this was an example of someone who was fearful to cross over because he had suffered trauma at the hands of somebody on the other side, and he didn't want to go there. He didn't want to meet this person. So anyhow, my mentor was talking to him and kind of opened things up so that he could feel the energy of the other side. And he said to her, is that what it feels like if I cross over? Because he was still iffy. And she said, it feels even better, because it was that wonderful high vibe feeling. And he said, okay, then I'll go. And so he finally crossed over, but it took quite a while. And then the mentor just told me, well, that's why I was supposed to bring you, because I know I'd taken a healing class from her, and I needed to kind of help the other person preserve her energy while this was going on. But another interesting thing about that was,
hold on a minute. I love the way that she brought somebody in to feel that unconditional love, because at one point my sister showed me how it felt on the other side, and she said, this is just a little bit of it. And you all know that it felt it. It feels so good. It hurts almost. You cry. It's just so incredibly joyful. And I never thought about doing that. That's an excellent.
she does. That's
thing
part
to
of her
do.
technique, is kind of opening up that tunnel of light, or the
'Cause
energy
that's
on the other
irresistible.
side.
That
And
is
then it
true.
just, they move along on their way
That
usually.
makes sense.
But one other thing about that, someone that the client knew was a paranormal investigator. And this ghost originally came home with the paranormal investigator, because they were just like looking for the data or whatever, not doing all the clearance or whatever. And then that ghost followed the energy back to this client and went to haunt her house, because these two people were friends, the paranormal investigator and the person who ended up with the ghost. And the ghost and the eventual client had a similar trauma, and the ghost followed that energy from the friend to the client, and that's how it got stuck there. So I thought that was
The
interesting.
importance of protecting yourself
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
and clearing and protecting. Oh my goodness.
I think it
You
was
want to go
Ross.
to some questions?
Let's do. But I
And
know
if
that
not,
Rossi had asked, how do you know the difference between a ghost and just a spirit? Does anybody want to take that?
she
Yeah.
does.
Yes.
I thought I could tell a couple stories that would kind of highlight the difference. So I gave a friend a birthday reading, and she really wasn't spiritual and really had no idea of what to do. So we were going from topic to topic. And one of the things is she had just been to um, New Orleans, and she had gotten a reading there. And then at the end of the reading, they said, there is an entity attached to you, for 40 more bucks, we can get rid of that. And she said, no, thank you, and came home. And so when I was reading her, she's like, do I have an entity attached to me? She did. I took a look, and she indeed did. But this, his name was Philip, and he really wasn't hurting her. And I'm like, Philip, show me how you got attached to her. What happened here? Because you're not related to her. What happened? So he showed me that there's a field outside of her home and that she had a boyfriend. She was arguing with the boyfriend kind of in the dusk at night. It was kind of very dark, and it was over a puffer coat. He had another girlfriend with a white puffer coat, and there was a fight between her and the other girlfriend of who owned this white puffer coat. And the boyfriend got aggressive with her and knocked her down into the dirt. And she got scared and she suddenly cried out psychically, cried out, "Help me." Well, Philip was just hanging around in that field because he didn't know where to go. And he wasn't in life, he wasn't a spiritual guy. He just had no idea what he was supposed to do. He was hanging out there. And so he went to help her. But there he found a really soft heart. And she did say that the guy who pushed her down suddenly got scared and ran away, just suddenly. So Philip did his job, but then he stayed with her. So he wasn't stuck per se. He was just there because she had such a kind, soft spirit. And I'll tell you how soft her spirit was when I said, "Oh, I can get rid of him for you if you'd like." She was like, "Oh, wait, what will happen to him?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, you would invite everybody in if." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm just going to send him back to the Creator. Going to retool him. He can come back if you want. If you like to hang out, he can come back." And she indeed let him go. And then I do think that sometimes this is a matter also of people just not people, of spirits just not knowing. Because another time I was reading at somebody, it was a young woman who was a psychic medium, but she was just discovering her gifts and was scared of them. And then as we were working through some of these gifts, she said, "Oh, and by the way, there's a little girl that hangs out with me all the time. She's, about 2 years old. She's wearing a pink tank top, and then she's got these great big pink uh, outdoor, snow boots on, and she's got a little tutu. And she's so much fun to hang out with. She talks all the time. She's just a lovely little kid, but I don't really know why she's there." And so I tapped in, and it turned out she was 2 years old. She was curious. She went outside. She died in the snow, dressed inappropriately like that. And she really did like this lady. They talked all the time, and I told her, we can send her back to heaven. She can go back and get retooled, and the little girl,
I like the way you call it. She
what you were
retooled.
saying, and she said to me, "Wait." The little girl said, "I don't have to wear this outfit anymore?" And I'm like, "No, honey, if you go, you don't have to." Boom. She just I just saw her just whoosh right out of there. She did not want to wear that outfit anymore. So I think the problem is sometimes they just need a little more explanation to go. And of course, some, as we heard, like with Jean, they're not going to go. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know that anyone's really, really stuck. I think some are just confused.
that's
Agreed.
interesting. Here's another question. Are ghosts looking to reincarnate? I don't think so. I don't think that has anything to do.
Yeah. I think they have to get to the other side to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I-
yeah. I would
yeah.
think so.
And I think a lot of them are just, as you were saying, confused, and they don't really understand about where they are or what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think they really, I agree with you. I think they don't know that much about being our
Well,
lives.
and if they've come from a religious background and they think they're not worthy of crossing over, that's a huge problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk about a guilt trip.
Yeah,
Yeah,
more damage the church has done.
I think that the clarification might be that the ghost still feels like they are in that incarnation that they passed from. So it's that incarnation, whether they pass and they're still in that personality, in that energy of the incarnation of which they pass from, if that makes sense. So that would be the ghost, and a spirit would be a soul, or the energy, or the etheric soul energy from your loved one that comes to visit. So it's either a ghost that's still part of this realm. And I did ask that, actually. That was one of the questions in my pendulum thing. Is the afterlife part of this earthly experience? It was interesting.
That is interesting. Here's
Oh.
another one from Leah.
It was good.
Why do some places make you ill? Well, I think it's that leftover energy, whether it's from a really low vibration place like war, a battle has been fought there. I can see how that would make you ill. And Joan, you were telling the story about a couple that kept
Yeah.
getting sicker and sicker in a house.
Yeah, I personally feel like a lot of it has to do with fear. Their fear is so great that it affects you.
Oh gosh, I hadn't thought about this in years. In college, I took a January trip to France, and we went on a trip out to Normandy and Brittany to the coast. And there was some sort of museum where they trotted you in and put you on risers and then showed you a film. But it was I don't know I don't know my history well enough, but all the old landing vehicles were right out in the ocean, right in front of this. And anyhow, I remember standing in this museum and the lights were out and I couldn't breathe. And as soon as it was over, I had to get out of there and just gasping for air. And I had this horrible feeling of, how can we be doing this? Look, that it's like it happened yesterday. Those landing vehicles are right there. And why don't people learn? And blah, 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 blah. And later I said, I couldn't quite understand why I had such a severe reaction. And the family psychic, who I'd been seeing at this time, said, oh, that's just because there were so many young souls who died there, who were trapped there. And they knew you were kind of open. So they wanted to communicate that to you, how
Wow.
senseless it was. And, I'm getting chills thinking about it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
great
powerful, Joan.
stories.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's very powerful. You guys have had some great stories. Very powerful, moving people to the other side. That's lovely. Let's see. This is just an aside. Carolyn says, love this topic. My great grandmother also stays at our family farm. Someone who lived there after us described her perfectly to me. I showed her a picture of the great grandmother and she said, that is her. That's pretty cool.
That's
Mhm.
And KK says, I've noticed more and more ghost activity this month. A couple of days ago, I went to walk through my laundry room door, which was already halfway open, and had a spirit block the door for a few seconds. Yikes. Smudge that room.
Yep, and laundry near the water and everything. See, even if you don't want to clear them out, you can always set ground rules for these ghosts and just say, like the ones in my husband's office, that it's like, fine, close the door. Just, you can stay there, but don't bother me if I go in here. And these are the rules. I haven't cleared them out. And or if you want to talk to them, you can set, but you don't want them creeping around your house or, in your bedroom and everything at night. Just say, I'm going to be sitting in this office on Wednesdays from this time to this time. And if you want to come talk to me, then you can. But otherwise, just go to the laundry room and stay there and don't bother.
Hang out in the laundry room. You're cool. That's wild. What a great topic today. We got some great questions and some great experience. Thanks, Joan.
It's a good idea.
It's
well done.
Out of time. So well done, Joan. Thank you so much. And all of it with your experiences. That's so cool. Who's got what going on? We're going to talk about the 5D world tomorrow on our show at 8:00 tomorrow, Tuesday night.
That's fascinating.
And then we have Ginger Fayette coming Saturday. And what about you guys? Who's got what coming up? Terry Suzuki, how about you? I'll start with you.
Well, on this Friday, Jean and I have a psychic triad going on at 1:30 Pacific. So that'll be fun. And then I think right after that on Sunday, I'm on Allie's channel at 10 a.m. Pacific, Heart and Soul Connected.
Lovely. How about you, Joan?
Tomorrow, Jean and I and Gerald of Tarot Stash will be reading together at, I guess that would be 2 p.m. Eastern and whatever that is Pacific.
Cool.
Anyhow, yes.
And Jean, you're on all the time, honey. Give us your name. I can catch you if I turn on the TV. Yay, there's Jean.
I do run in cycles. And Joan and Gerald tomorrow on my channel. That'll be really fun. And then on Friday, I have a new light language woman who is just fascinating. And I met her at one of the psychic fairs that I go to, and she agreed to come on. And she's just really fascinating. I'd love for everybody to meet her. Ooh, and then I'll be on with Terry Suzuki for the psychic triad. And then after that, I have Stacy and Daphne coming on a Friday night fun night to share. So I'm doing my triple header Fridays again. That's what you guys.
Hey, Suzuki, are you doing any more of your healing? Are you going to start doing any more healing series?
You're talking to me?
Mm-hmm.
I will. I just have, I've been doing a lot of in-person fairs recently. And so I haven't had as much time to sit down and meditate and take it all in. So hopefully we will do that soon.
I think those were fabulous. I really enjoyed those. And I think they helped a heck of a lot of people.
Yes.
Next month, September 2nd is the day. And Terry, you're up. And your subject is the future. I don't know if you want to keep that. I don't know where that came from, but that's
think
good.
About it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's fun. Everybody, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And ladies, of course, thank you for being here. And we'll have Terry Lee back next month. So that'll be good too.
Yeah.
So until next time, we love you. Go out and shine your light.
Everybody take care.
Thank you so much.